There are 4 ways to get more out of your business than you put in. Most founders have only ever found one. I was one of those founders for many years. I built everything around labor. When I needed more output, I hired. The business grew, but so did the weight of it. More revenue meant more complexity and more of my time in every single decision. What I wasn't seeing was the other 3. Now here's the thing about those 3. 2 of them don't need anybody's permission. They don't need to be managed, and they don't grow in a straight line. Naval Ravikant maps out all 4 out in a framework that I keep coming back to. He calls it the 4 types of leverage. There's 4 different ways to get more output than the hours that you put in. When I looked at my own business through this, I found that there were 3 levers that I haven't touched. So I want to walk you through all 4 with you: labor, capital, media, and code. By the end, I think you'll see which ones you've been leaving on the table. Labor is the one most of us started with. You needed output, so you brought in the people. That was the right move. But Naval's take on it is blunt. He calls it the oldest form of leverage and probably the worst one available right now. Now, before you push back on that, let me show you why. The mechanics are simple. You hire one person, they can't handle the load, so you end up hiring a second. The second needs to be trained, which takes your time. So now you end up with 3 people. So you need somebody to help manage the 3. And somewhere in there, you stopped doing the work and started managing the people doing it. The thing is, more revenue requires more people. More people requires more management, and more management just requires more of you. It's a straight line, and there's no leverage in a straight line. But here's where I want to add something to what Naval says, because the mechanics explain why it doesn't scale well, but they don't really explain why every founder keeps reaching for it anyway. And I think it's this. Somewhere along the way, headcount became the metric. The number of people on your team became how you measured whether the business was serious. You know you've built something when you've got a team. That's not logic, that's culture. It's what making it looks like to everyone around you. So founders keep pulling this lever, not just because it's the first one that they find, but because it's the one that looks like progress to the outside world. The reason this lever is so hard to put down isn't just that it works, it's that it looks right. Now, there's one more thing about labor that I think gets missed entirely. Naval calls it a permission lever, and I'll come back to what that actually means later. But think about this first. The permission to use this lever isn't a one-time thing. It's not just getting someone to say yes when you're hiring them. It's the yes that they give you every single day they show up, every week that they stay, every time that they perform. And that yes can be taken back on a random Tuesday with a 2 weeks notice in the middle of your busiest season. Every person you add is a dependency that has to be maintained. The bigger the team, the more of those daily yeses you're carrying. That's the ceiling, not the idea of having a team, the weight of keeping one. The second lever is money working for you instead of people working for you. And it scales differently than labor in one specific way. Capital doesn't really need managing. It doesn't get tired. You can deploy more of it without spending more of your time. Money, invested well, compounds. People don't. They need more of you as you add more of them. Naval says this is the lever that's built the most wealth in the last century, and he's right. But here's what I've noticed watching it from the inside. Most founders aren't really deploying this lever at all. Not because they don't have the capital, it's because that every time they generate a profit, the reflex is to convert it straight back into labor. You had a good quarter, you end up hiring somebody. Revenue went up, you added somebody to the team. They're taking the output of the business and turning right back into the lever with the lowest ceiling. So capital doesn't get deployed, it just gets converted, and then it needs managing. It's still a permission lever. You either earned it or someone had to give it to you. And deploying it well takes a skill that most operators have never developed. Most of us came up managing people, not money. Nobody taught us how to make money work. But the ceiling here is already higher than lever. Capital doesn't quit on a Tuesday. It doesn't have a bad week. Once it's working, it works without you in a room. And that's what is so good about it. It's just still permission. And there are 2 levers coming that need nobody's permission at all. So let's get into those. The first permissionless lever, and the reason I want to start here is because this one's already inside your business, you just haven't really captured it yet. Think about how many times you've explained the same thing, how your onboarding works, what a client can expect in the first 30 days, what to do when a prospect goes quiet, how to handle a situation that your team keeps running into. You've had some of those conversations dozens of times, and every single time it costs you the same amount of time and energy as the first time. Now, that's the problem that media leverage solves, not by having somebody else explain it, by encoding it once so it explains itself. Now, when most people hear media leverage, they go straight to content. Post on social, build an audience, or start a YouTube channel. Now, I'm not saying that's wrong, but that's the external version. And it's actually the smallest version of what this lever can do. The one that changed how I think about business isn't content strategy, it's a knowledge infrastructure. Every process that lives inside your head is a liability because the only way to transfer it right now is through you, your time, your presence, your voice on a call. Media leverage means you stop doing that. You record the walkthrough once, you build the SOP as a video, or let's say you create an entire onboarding library that a new hire can watch on day one instead of sitting on a 2-hour call. That recording doesn't need time off. It doesn't need you to be walked through it again. It shows up the same way every single time, whether you're in the room or not. And this is where it connects back to what we said about labor. You remember that daily yes? The training, the re-explaining, the constant overhead of keeping people up to speed? Media is how you stop paying that tax. Not by hiring somebody better, but by building something that doesn't need to be paid in time at all. That's the internal version, but it goes external too. You can build client onboarding sequences that set expectations before you've ever jumped on a call, content that keeps you in front of people while you're doing something else. You show up once in a recording, in a sequence, in a piece of content, and it keeps working long after you've moved on. And here's the property that makes this different from everything that we talked about so far. Nobody has to say yes. No hire to manage, no capital to raise. All you need is a camera and something worth saying and the willingness to hit record. You build it once and that thing is still running 3 years from now. That's permissionless lever, the version you can start building this week. But that's really only half of it. What I'm about to show you is what it looks like when the entire business runs that way. Not just your knowledge, every single decision. The fourth lever is what Naval calls code. And when he says that, he means more of a developer, somebody who writes the software once and it runs forever. One product, no extra hours, same calls for 10 users as for 1 million users. That's his definition. Most of us hear that and think that that's a different world. We're not personally building apps. But the idea underneath it is simpler than the word. Build the logic and let it run forever. And you don't need to know how to write code for that to be true in your business. You just need your business to know what to do. And most businesses don't. Let's say a lead comes in at 11 p.m. on Friday when nobody's around. It sits in the inbox until Monday morning. By then, they've already found somebody else. That lead is gone, and it's not because your team dropped the ball. It's because there was no system there to catch it. Now, let's build the brain inside. It's the same lead, same time. The business responds, qualifies them, books the call, and follows up if they goes quiet. Nobody had to be awake. Nobody had to decide. The business already knew what to do. And that system costs the same to run for one lead as it does for 1,000. Now with the brain built in, the 1,000th person gets exactly what the first one got every time. But here's what I keep coming back to. Every person who's been hired to manage something repeatable, the follow-up, the onboarding, the pipeline checks, that hire was covering for a system that didn't exist. The labor bill is the proof that the code leverage is missing. You've been paying someone to be the brain the business doesn't have yet. And what I've noticed watching businesses run without this lever is that the founder always ends up as the fallback. Not because they're bad at it, because there's nothing to delegate to. The business can't think for itself, so it thinks through them. Every question routes back to the founder. Every decision waits on one person. That's not a team problem, that's a missing lever. Naval calls this the most powerful form of permissionless leverage, and I get it in a way that I didn't before, because every other lever has a ceiling somewhere. More people means more management, capital takes time to build, media still needs somebody to create it. This is the first one where your time stops being the factor. You build the systems, and the system runs. Every other lever makes your business bigger. This one makes it work without you. If you want to go deeper on how this actually gets built inside of a real business, I walk through it every week in the newsletter. Link in the description below. But Naval doesn't just map out 4 levers, he draws a line through the middle of them. And once you see where the line sits, everything we've talked about looks different. Labor and capital are on one side, media and code are on the other. And the difference between the two groups is this. The first two need permission. The second two don't. Labor needs a person to agree to work for you. Capital needs someone to give you the money, or you need to have already built it. Both of them depend on something outside of your control, someone's yes, someone's agreement. That's permission leverage. Media and code, nobody has to agree to anything. You don't need a hire to say yes. You don't need an investor to believe in you. You build it and it runs. No one can stop you. No one has to let you. That's the permissionless category. And here's what I think is the most important thing in this whole framework. Most of us have spent the majority of our energy getting better at permission leverage, hiring better people, managing more effectively, building capital over time, all of it requiring someone else's involvement. The permissionless category, the one that doesn't need anybody, has been sitting there the entire time. And I think the part of why it gets ignored is that most of us learn business from people who only knew the first two. Labor and capital, that's the playbook that got handed down. Hire people, build capital, grow. Nobody in that model was pulling media and code levers. Not because they didn't work, because the technology to deploy them at scale barely existed. So the founders in that lineage built with what they had. 2 levers, all permission-based. And most of us have just inherited that model. Others who have been available for maybe 20 years, but most businesses are still running on the old playbook, all because nobody showed them the split. So here's the part that I want to make sure lands clearly, because when you hear labor is the worst lever and the permissionless levers are the most powerful, the instinct is to think that you need to tear something down, replace the team with systems, stop hiring people, and start over. That's not what Naval is saying, and it's definitely not what I'm saying either. His actual words are worth saying here. He says you're adding capital leverage on top of labor, then adding code on top of that. Each one stacked on the last, getting closer and closer to owning all of the upside. It's not a replacement, it's a stack. Right now, most founders are standing on one block, which is labor. They built a team, and that's the whole tower. And the question isn't which blocks to jump to, it's which blocks haven't been added yet. The founder with the team and the media library and the systems running underneath, they're not working harder than you. They're standing on more blocks. It's the same hours, same days, just a different altitude. And you don't have to build all 4 at once. The stack goes up 1 block at a time. The team you already have doesn't have to go anywhere. The capital you built doesn't need to disappear. You just stop converting everything back into the bottom block and you start building upward. The most leveraged version of your business isn't the one with fewer people. It's the one where the people, the capital, the media, and the systems are all pulling at the same time, where every layer is doing the work and the founder is sitting at the top of something and not buried underneath it. I've been sitting with this framework for a while now, and I'll be honest, it changed how I look at every business I'm involved in. Not from a what's broken lens, just where are the missing blocks? Because every founder I've watched who feels stuck, who feels like more people is the only answer, who feels like they're always the one holding together, they're not lacking effort, they're lacking leverage. They're standing on one block and wondering why everyone else seems to be at a different height. The framework doesn't fix anything by itself, but it does something I think is way more valuable. It shows you what category your next move belongs to. Is it another permission lever, or is it time to start building on the permissionless side? That question, I think about it differently now, not just in my own business, in everything I'm building. And I think if you're honest with yourself after watching this, you already know which block is missing.